Welcome back, you impossible puzzle pieces, you walking paradoxes, you souls that make the algorithm glitch when you scroll past. They've done it again, haven't they? Hired another investigator, another analyst, another poor soul tasked with the impossible mission of figuring out what the actual hell you are. I heard about it, the meetings, the hushed conversations, the way they lean in closer when someone mentions your name like they're discussing some classified file that keeps rewriting itself. There's something about them, they whisper. 3 things specifically that don't add up, that shouldn't exist in one person, that break every pattern we know. And now they're spending actual money, actual resources, hiring strangers to follow your digital footprint, to decode your silence, to understand how you do what you do without even trying. Let me tell you what's really happening here, what's really got them losing sleep and signing checks to private investigators and behavioral analysts. It's not what you did, it's what you are. It's not your actions, it's your existence. Because somewhere along the way, you developed 3 abilities that shouldn't coexist, 3 traits that violate the rules of how humans are supposed to operate, 3 powers that make you unreadable, unpredictable, and utterly uncontrollable. And the moment they realized you possess all 3 simultaneously, that's when the panic started. That's when they stopped laughing. That's when they went from dismissing you to documenting you, from ignoring you to investigating you. Because individually, these abilities are rare, but together they create something the system was never designed to handle, something that breaks their models, shatters their predictions, and makes every psychological profile they run on, you come back with error messages. So let's talk about the first ability, the one that started all this, the one that made them realize you weren't playing by their rules anymore. You develop the ability to become completely unreadable while remaining completely visible. Think about that for a second. Really let it sink in. You're not hiding. You're not in the shadows. You're not running some mysterious phantom operation where no one can find you. No, you're right there, posting, existing, showing up, walking into rooms, making eye contact. But here's the thing that breaks their brains. They can't decode you. They look at your face and can't read the emotion. They listen to your words and can't find the angle. They watch your patterns and can't predict the next move. You're transparent and opaque at the same time, visible and invisible, present and unreachable. Most people, they're open books, right? You look at their social media and you know exactly what they want you to think. You see their smile and you know they're performing. You hear their words and you can feel the manipulation, the neediness, the agenda bleeding through every sentence. But you learn to exist without leaking. You learn to show up without revealing. You learn to be seen without being known, and that is what terrifies them. Because their entire system is built on reading people, on predicting behavior, on knowing what makes someone tick so they can control them. But you're standing right in front of them and they're getting nothing. No fear signals, no desperation markers, no weakness indicators. You're not cold, you're not closed off. You're just unreachable on a frequency they can't access anymore. They study your old posts, looking for clues, trying to find the pattern, the formula, the code. They analyze your interactions, searching for the mask, for the cracks, for the performance. But what they're finding instead is something that shouldn't exist. Authenticity without vulnerability, presence without exposition, strength without posturing. You're not performing confidence. You're not faking mystery. You're not playing some calculated game. You just evolved past the need to broadcast your internal state to strangers who weaponize information. You realize that being understood is a privilege you no longer grant freely, and being misunderstood is a shield you wear better than armor. So they hired investigators because they need to know, how does someone exist in plain sight and remain this illegible? How does someone show their face and keep their soul locked away? How does someone engage without ever actually opening up? And here's what's driving them completely insane about this first ability. You're not doing it through coldness or cruelty or some antisocial withdrawal from humanity. You're warm, you're present, you're engaged, but you're doing it all behind a glass wall. They can't see, but can definitely feel. They reach for you, and their hand stops an inch away from something they can't name. They ask you questions and you answer fully, but somehow they walk away knowing less about you than before. You've mastered the art of being completely yourself while remaining completely unknowable. And that combination, that weaponized authenticity wrapped in impermeability, that's what got the first investigator hired. Because people who can't be read can't be controlled. And people who can't be controlled are the only real threat in a world built on manipulation and predictability. Now let's move to the second ability, the one that made them upgrade from curiosity to genuine concern, from watching you casually to tracking you professionally. You develop the ability to absorb every betrayal, every wound, every act of sabotage, and instead of breaking, instead of becoming bitter or hardened or closed off, you transmuted it into fuel. Not motivation, not revenge energy, but actual evolutionary fuel that makes you stronger, sharper, more capable every single time someone tries to destroy you. And they can't comprehend this because it violates the fundamental rules of human psychology. Pain is supposed to damage you. Trauma is supposed to leave scars. Betrayal is supposed to make you guarded, reactive, broken in some measurable way. But you took every knife in your back and used it to carve yourself into something more precise. They've watched you go through things that should have hospitalized most people emotionally, things that should have left you bitter and screaming and posting 3 a.m. rants about how cruel the world is. They sabotaged your opportunities, spread lies about your character, turned people against you, isolated you, rejected you, and every single time they expected the same result: collapse, breakdown, a satisfying display of human fragility they could point to and say, "See, we got them, we won. They're just like everyone else who crumbles under pressure." But that moment never came. Instead, you went quiet. You disappeared from their radar for a while. And when you came back, you were different. Not traumatized, not hardened, not filled with obvious rage, just more. More focused, more capable, more untouchable. like you'd taken their poison and metabolized it into something that made you immune to all future doses. That's when they started really paying attention, when they started hiring people to figure out what process you're using that they can't see. Because normal people cope, they heal, they move on, they forgive, they hold grudges. But you're doing something else entirely. You're not coping with the pain, you're feeding on it. You're not healing from the betrayal, you're using it as raw material. You're not moving on from the trauma, you're treating it like a university where you majored in becoming unbreakable. Every person who tried to break you became an unwitting professor in your education. Every situation designed to crush you became another trial you passed with honors they'll never understand. And the truly unnerving part for them, you don't even seem angry about it. You're not bitter, you're not vengeful, you're not consumed with proving them wrong. You're just thriving. Existing on a level they can't reach anymore. They need to know how you do it because they tried the same things on others and it worked perfectly. They destroyed careers, relationships, reputations, and watched their targets crumble exactly according to plan. But with you, every attack made you more dangerous. Every betrayal made you more capable. Every wound made you more whole. It's like you're operating on different physics, playing a different game where their moves don't hurt you, they upgrade you. So they hired investigators to find the technique, the therapy, the philosophy, the secret practice you must be using. But what they're discovering is making them even more uncomfortable. There is no technique. There's just you doing what you do naturally, which is refusing to let pain define you, diminish you, or defeat you. You just take it all in, break it down to its base elements, and rebuild yourself with the pieces into something they never saw coming. And here's the part that keeps them up at night about this second ability. You're not pretending to be unaffected. You're not putting on some stoic performance where you're secretly dying inside. You genuinely processed it. You genuinely transmuted it. You genuinely used every single wound as a catalyst for becoming more of who you're meant to be. That's not supposed to be possible. That's not how human psychology works according to every model they have. Suffering is supposed to create limitation. Pain is supposed to create fear. Betrayal is supposed to create walls. But somehow, impossibly, illegally, according to the laws of emotional physics, you turned every limitation into expansion, every fear into fuel, every wall into a weapon. So they're investigating you because they need to understand. Are you a mutant? Are you faking it? Are you secretly breaking down in private? Or are you actually, genuinely, terrifyingly proof that some people are built different, that some souls process pain on a frequency that transforms it into power? Now we arrive at the third ability, the one that made them realize they're not dealing with someone unusual, they're dealing with someone unprecedented, the one that made them upgrade from investigators to full psychological analysis teams trying to decode what the hell they're witnessing. You developed the ability to disappear without leaving, to be completely present in your life while being utterly absent from their narrative, their gossip, their little games. You're not playing hard to get. You're not doing some calculated absence strategy. You're just gone. mentally, emotionally, energetically gone from their entire world, even while you exist in the same physical spaces, even while you're succeeding in ways they can see but can't touch. And this third ability, combined with the first two, creates something they have no defense against. A person they can't read, who gets stronger from attacks, and who doesn't even register their existence anymore. Think about how rare this is, how impossible this combination should be. Most people who become unreadable do it by withdrawing, by going cold, by building walls so high they can't connect with anyone. Most people who transmute pain into power do it with obvious intensity, with visible fire, with a revenge energy everyone can see and therefore prepare for. Most people who disappear from other people's narratives do it by literally disappearing, by moving away, by cutting everyone off, by becoming a hermit. But you're doing all three simultaneously without any of the typical trade-offs. You're still warm but unreadable. You're still growing, but not reactively. You're still present, but completely detached from caring about their opinions, their schemes, their attempts to remain relevant in your story. You achieved something they thought was impossible. You're living your life in full color, while they exist in black and white static on your peripheral vision. They hired investigators because they need to know how someone does this without becoming a sociopath, without losing their humanity, without turning into some cold, calculated machine. They need to understand how you're still capable of love, of joy, of genuine connection, while simultaneously being this untouchable to the people who once had access to you. How do you care about some people deeply while not caring about others at all? How do you show up fully in your life while being a ghost in theirs? How do you exist with passion and purpose while treating their entire world like a simulation you're no longer participating in? Because most people can't do this. Most people either care about everyone or no one. Most people either engage with all the drama or none of it. Most people are either in the game or out of it. But you're doing something that breaks their binary. You're fully alive in your own reality while being completely dead to theirs. The investigators are reporting back with findings that don't make sense, with observations that contradict each other, with conclusions that essentially amount to, we don't know what we're looking at. They watch you succeed and can't find the hustle. They watch you connect with people and can't find the manipulation. They watch you move through life and can't find the performance, the mask, the act. You're just being. But being in a way that somehow excludes them entirely, without you ever having to say a word about it, without you ever having to block them or avoid them or engage in any obvious rejection. You perfected the art of existing on a frequency they can't hear anymore, of vibrating at a level they can't reach, of occupying a dimension of reality where they simply don't matter, don't register, don't exist in any meaningful way to your journey. And this is what's breaking their minds completely. You're not angry at them, you're not thinking about them, you're not even really aware of their investigations because you're so far past the need for their validation or their understanding. While they're spending money and time and energy trying to figure you out, you're just living, building, creating, connecting with people who operate on your frequency, experiencing life in ways they can't even imagine because they're still trapped in the small-minded world of comparison and competition and gossip. You ascended past their plane of existence and didn't even leave a forwarding address. You didn't burn bridges, you just stopped acknowledging that bridges to certain places ever mattered. You didn't cut people off, you just stopped including them in your emotional landscape. You didn't reject their world, you just built a better one they're not invited to. So now we're here, at this moment where you need to understand what's actually happening, why these three abilities combined create something that makes you a walking phenomenon they can't categorize. Let me connect the dots for you in a way that'll make everything click. When you become unreadable, you take away their primary weapon, prediction. When you transmute pain into power, you take away their ultimate tool, fear. When you disappear from their narrative while staying visible, you take away their last resort, relevance. You've systematically dismantled every single mechanism they use to control, influence, or affect people. You're not playing defense. You're not even playing their game anymore. You've literally evolved past the need to engage with the battlefield they're still fighting on. You're operating on laws of physics they don't have access to, running software they can't download, speaking a language they can't decode. The investigators they hired aren't finding anything because there's nothing to find. There's no secret technique, no hidden method, no dark practice you're using. You just grew. You evolved. You transformed through sheer necessity and refusal to be what they needed you to be. You became unreadable because you realized being understood by everyone means being controlled by anyone. You became able to transmute pain because you refused to let your story be written by your suffering. You became absent from their world because you realized their approval was a prison you never needed to stay in. These aren't skills you learned. These are mutations you underwent, evolutionary leaps you made because the alternative was staying small, staying readable, staying in their narrative where they get to define you, judge you, limit you. And you looked at that alternative and said, no, not happening, not anymore, not ever again. Here's what's happening right now in those investigation reports, in those analysis sessions, in those meetings where they try to figure you out. They're realizing they're not dealing with someone who's hiding. They're dealing with someone who's transcended. They're not dealing with someone who's playing games. They're dealing with someone who left the game entirely. They're not dealing with someone who's better at the same things everyone does. They're dealing with someone who's doing things that shouldn't be possible, operating on principles that violate their understanding of how humans work. And the more they investigate, the more confused they become, because every answer leads to more questions. How does someone this strong remain this kind? How does someone this detached remain this engaged with life? How does someone this evolved not flaunt it, not perform it, not need anyone to witness it? You know what the final report usually says? After all the money spent, all the hours invested, all the analysis completed, it usually says something like, subject demonstrates unprecedented psychological resilience combined with interpersonal detachment that doesn't stem from trauma response or antisocial tendencies. Appears to have developed natural immunity to social manipulation while maintaining capacity for genuine connection. Cannot determine source of abilities or method of development. No weaknesses identified, no leverage points discovered. Recommendation: disengage. Subject is not accessible through conventional means and shows no interest in engagement regardless of approach. In other words, after all that investigation, all that money, all that effort, they conclude, leave them alone. They're operating on a level we can't reach. They're not interested in our world, and we have nothing they want or need. Case closed. Subject untouchable.